Unlikely paths to power, the arrest records of future leaders. The road to political power is rarely straightforward. History is replete with tales of future presidents and heads of state who faced legal battles, imprisonments, and controversies long before they ascended to their country's highest offices. These stories are not just footnotes, they are pivotal chapters in the lives of leaders who would later shape the course of nations. Here are 10 astonishing instances of future leaders who found themselves behind bars before they found their way into the annals of history. Number 1. Nelson Mandela, Journey from Prison to Presidency. Nelson Mandela, born on July 18, 1918, was arrested in 1962 and sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964 during the Rivonia trial, accused of plotting to overthrow the apartheid regime in South Africa. He spent 27 years incarcerated, primarily on Robben Island, under severe conditions. His release on February 11, 1990, marked a pivotal turn in South African history, leading to the dismantling of apartheid. Mandela received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993 alongside F.W. de Klerk, the then state president, for their efforts in ending apartheid. Mandela's election as South Africa's first black president in 1994 symbolized a monumental shift towards democracy and reconciliation in the country. Number 2. Andrew Jackson, the defiant prisoner of war. Andrew Jackson, who served as the 7th President of the United States from 1829 to 1837, had a tumultuous early life that foreshadowed his combative and resilient nature. During the American Revolutionary War, the young Jackson was taken prisoner by British forces in 1781 along with his brother. The incident where a British officer slashed him with a saber for refusing to polish his boots left Jackson with a lifelong disdain for the British. This episode, occurring when Jackson was just 14 years old, imbued him with a fiery spirit and a staunch patriotism that would characterize his military and political careers. Jackson's presidency was marked by his populist approach and his strong stance on preserving the Union. His early experiences, including his imprisonment during the war, informed his leadership style, often described as aggressive and unyielding. Jackson's legacy is complex, celebrated for his role in expanding the U.S. democracy, yet criticized for policies like the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which led to the tragic Trail of Tears. Number 3. Adolf Hitler, the failed putsch that paved a dark path. Adolf Hitler's attempt to seize power in Germany through the Beer Hall Putsch in November 1923 marked a crucial turning point in his political career. The failed coup led to Hitler's arrest and trial, during which he was sentenced to 5 years in Landsberg prison for treason. Remarkably, Hitler served only 9 months of his sentence, during which time he dictated Mein Kampf to Rudolf Hess. The book laid out Hitler's ultranationalist, anti-Semitic, and anti-communist ideology, which would later form the basis of Nazi policies. The leniency of Hitler's sentence and the conditions of his imprisonment, which allowed him to receive visitors and messages, highlighted the sympathetic views some in the German establishment had towards him. Released in December 1924, Hitler used his trial and imprisonment to gain national prominence, reorganizing the Nazi Party and setting the stage for its rise to power. The Beer Hall Putsch, though a tactical failure, ultimately contributed to Hitler's ascent, leading to the catastrophic impact of his dictatorship on Germany and the world. Number 4. Joseph Stalin, the bank robber who became a tyrant. Joseph Stalin, born Joseph Vissarionovich Zurgashvili in 1878, began his rise to power through revolutionary activities aimed at undermining the Tsarist regime in Russia. One of the most notable episodes of his early career was his involvement in the 1907 Tiflis bank robbery, which was orchestrated to fund Bolshevik activities. The heist resulted in the deaths of 40 people and the theft of 341,000 rubles. Despite his criminal activities, Stalin was not apprehended for this robbery but was arrested and exiled to Siberia several times for other revolutionary activities. His multiple escapes from exile demonstrated his determination and resourcefulness. Stalin's political journey took a decisive turn in 1922 when he became the General Secretary of the Communist Party. His ascent to power was marked by cunning political maneuvers and the elimination of rivals, leading to his dictatorship over the Soviet Union until his death in 1953. Number 5. Vaclav Havel, from prison to Prague castle. Vaclav Havel, born in 1936, was a prominent Czech playwright and dissident who became an emblematic figure of resistance against communist rule in Czechoslovakia. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Havel faced multiple arrests for his outspoken criticism of the communist government, culminating in a significant imprisonment from 1979 to 1983 for subversion against the state. Despite the oppressive conditions, Havel's resolve only strengthened, and his writings from prison, advocating for human rights and democracy, garnered international support. His leadership in the Civic Forum played a pivotal role in the peaceful Velvet Revolution of November 1989, which led to the end of 41 years of communist rule in Czechoslovakia. By December 1989, Havel was elected president of Czechoslovakia, marking a dramatic transition from a political prisoner to the leader of his country. Number 6. Benazir Bhutto, from prison to prime minister. Benazir Bhutto, born in 1953, was the daughter of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, Pakistan's former prime minister who was executed in 1979 under the military dictatorship of General Muhammad Zia-ul-Haq. Following her father's death, Benazir Bhutto became a leading figure in the opposition to Zia's regime, enduring multiple detentions and periods of house arrest throughout the 1980s. Her political activities led to her arrest in 1984 on charges of leading anti-state activities, during which she was held in solitary confinement under harsh conditions. Despite these challenges, Bhutto's unwavering commitment to democracy and her leadership of the Pakistan People's Party (PPP) propelled her to become the first woman prime minister of a Muslim-majority country in 1988. After being dismissed by the president in 1990, she was re-elected in 1993, serving until 1996. Bhutto's political career was marked by her efforts to democratize Pakistan and her struggle against the military and conservative forces. Number 7. Anwar Sadat, the revolutionary behind bars to Nobel laureate. Anwar Sadat, born on December 25, 1918, played a pivotal role in Egypt's history, both as a revolutionary and as a president. Before ascending to the presidency, Sadat was deeply involved in the anti-colonial struggle against British occupation. He was a member of the Free Officers, a secret revolutionary group led by Gamal Abdel Nasser. Sadat's anti-colonial activities led to his arrest and imprisonment several times throughout the 1940s and early 1950s. His most notable imprisonment was in 1942, after a failed attempt to negotiate with the Axis powers during World War II to oust the British from Egypt. Despite these setbacks, Sadat rose through the ranks to become vice president under Nasser, eventually succeeding him as president in 1970. His presidency marked a turning point in Middle Eastern politics, especially with the 1978 Camp David Accords, for which he and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1978. Sadat's leadership transformed Egypt's economy and its relations with Israel, making peace a tangible reality for the first time in decades. Number 8. Ulysses S Grant, presidential speedster. Ulysses S Grant, the 18th President of the United States, is often remembered for his leadership during the Civil War and his 2 terms as president. However, a lesser-known aspect of his life occurred in 1872, when he was president. Grant had a penchant for fast horses and was stopped and fined for speeding in his horse-drawn carriage on the streets of Washington, D.C. The arresting officer did not recognize him at first but had the courage to uphold the law regardless of Grant's high office. This incident resulted in Grant being fined $20, a modest sum that underscored the principle that no one, not even the president, is above the law. It's a quirky anecdote that humanizes Grant and illustrates the everyday life and governance challenges of the era. Number 9. Kim Dae Jung, from death row to presidential palace. Kim Dae Jung, born on January 6, 1925, was a towering figure in South Korea's struggle for democracy. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, under South Korea's military dictatorships, Kim was a vocal advocate for democracy and human rights, leading to his arrest and a death sentence in 1980 following a military coup. International pressure, notably from the United States and human rights groups, led to the commutation of his sentence. Kim's political resilience was remarkable. Despite numerous arrests and an assassination attempt, he persevered and was eventually elected president of South Korea in 1997. His tenure was marked by the Sunshine Policy towards North Korea, aimed at improving relations and reducing tensions on the Korean peninsula. For his efforts in democracy and peace, Kim was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2000. Kim's life and career embody the triumph of democratic principles over authoritarianism. Number 10. Jomo Kenyatta, from political prisoner to founding father. Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya's founding father, was born around 1897 and became the face of Kenya's struggle for independence from British colonial rule. His involvement with the Kenya African Union and his advocacy for Kenyan independence made him a target of the colonial authorities. In 1952, amidst the Mau Mau uprising, Kenyatta was arrested by the British on allegations of orchestrating the rebellion, despite scant evidence. He was convicted and sentenced to 7 years of hard labor, followed by an indefinite restriction to remote parts of Kenya. Kenyatta's imprisonment became a symbol of the Kenyan independence movement's struggle against colonialism. Upon his release in 1961, Kenyatta's leadership was instrumental in negotiating Kenya's independence, achieved in 1963. He then served as Prime Minister and, from 1964, as the first President of Kenya, laying the foundations for the nation's future. Kenyatta's transformation from a political prisoner to the leader of a free Kenya is a testament to his enduring legacy in African and world history.